Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This is Saurabh, and I'm joining in from India. Welcome to Product Management in a Pandemic Crisis. So this is my first time at Productized. I was hoping to be in Lisbon, but unfortunately, we are all virtual. Next time, hopefully I get a chance to meet you all in Lisbon. Hopefully things get better, fingers crossed. A bit about myself. So I'm a senior product manager with AirAsia.com. And so AirAsia is, as a group, there are a lot of verticals in which AirAsia operates, right? A lot of travel verticals, and fundamentally, the primary goal for AirAsia.com is to make travel easy for everyone, right? And I particularly lead the flights platform division, where I take care of the booking experience for both web and mobile. And previously, I was working with Microsoft as part of Microsoft Teams, and I've also been a part of some startups in the ad tech domain and in the SaaS domain as well. So here's what we are going to talk about. Initially, I'm going to share a bit about the crisis, what it really meant for us at AirAsia.com and me as a product manager for flights, which was deeply impacted. Then we are going to shift our focus and narrow it down to product management, what it meant, what the crisis actually meant for product managers. And, we're going to talk about how this changed the whole angle around priorities and survival. And then I'm going to share my learnings about how we navigated the storm and what lessons you can take from this session. So here's a picture about KLIA2 in Malaysia. For those of you who may not know, so AirAsia is basically the leading low-cost airline in Asia, excluding China. And what that means is the primary hub for AirAsia is Malaysia, and it operates out of Kuala Lumpur. So KLIO2 is the primary hub from which the airline operates. And on a routine day in 2019, a Monday morning, this whole terminal would kind of look deserted, like a top view. Because planes were flying, and I mean, on a monthly basis, AirAsia carries around 8 to 9 million passengers. So all the planes usually, are busy on a given day, except say 3, 4, which are parked or which are, carrying people, waiting for people to on board and fly. But as part of the coronavirus pandemic, there was a time in April when 96% of our fleet was grounded because all countries started announcing lockdowns. And what that meant, the whole travel industry essentially came to a standstill. And flights, obviously no one was flying. So this was a very scary time for all of us at AirAsia, where predominantly our revenues come from the airline. Today, as part of the AirAsia.com initiative, we are obviously expanding and entering into other verticals and trying to align to a platform strategy, right? But in April, things were different. So what did the crisis mean apart from for others, right? Apart from us, the crisis for most of us meant there were no hikes in 2020. What else? There were a lot of our friends were getting laid off, cross-cutting across the industry. A lot of us were having to go through tough times. Some of our friends and near and dear ones had to retrain themselves in order to be stay relevant to the need at that time and even today. It also meant that from a travel industry perspective, the revenues compared to 2019 were 60 to 80% down. And as product managers, the long-term strategy and vision and all that we had, if we were in a startup or a mid-sized company, had taken a deep hit, right? So that is what overall the crisis was. And obviously, each of us have their own tough situations and circumstances that we have gone through in the crisis. So now let's turn towards product management, what the crisis means for product managers, what it meant from a priority standpoint and a roadmap standpoint. So usually as product managers, we are told, right, and we hear that product managers are CEOs of the product. And essentially, this is how we think. It's like one of those memes, right? That we see on Facebook. How people think, what people think you do, what you think you do, what your friends think you do, and what you actually do, right? So this is what everyone thinks that product managers do. They are the captain of the ship, and but realistically speaking, right, during this COVID time, this is how I felt product managers were, especially if when I talk to people when in startups, in mid-sized companies, right? Some of us would also be able to relate to this. So nearly on the edge of a cliff, and we were trying to hold back and lead at a time when your whole team was looking up to you. And not just that, right? We were also rebalancing we were rebalancing priorities. We were on a day-to-day basis. There were new rules, regulations that were coming in from a travel industry standpoint. Every day, some country was announcing further restrictions or sanctions, or uh, later on towards the latter half of the year, people were starting to ease restrictions. Again, regulations were changing on a day-to-day basis. So I mean, lot of things were happening and tough times. So that's what most of us were feeling at that point in time, right? Say, early April, March, April onwards up to, I mean, even today, right? Things are not the best. And IATA is saying, at least for travel to bounce back to pre-COVID times, it will take a couple of years at the minimum. So how did we end up navigating the storm and the first half of the storm, right? Which I mean, today things are still not good, but how did we end up navigating uh, the first half of the year? Okay, so the key thing that we realized was at this point in time was, everything else is secondary, but the primary thing and the one and only thing that you will need to survive is cash. And this is a time to introspect, review what your financial situation is, do unit economics, and see if you continue with the same strategy, are you gonna stay relevant tomorrow? So then we did all of that, and there were certain things we stopped, there were certain routes we closed, So usually on a yearly basis we do an assessment of all of the route planning and all of that, right? But at this point in time we did cutthroat prioritization on the routes we wanted to continue in once restrictions are eased. What is the load factors, uh, numbers that we want to target, and what are the lines of businesses that are not doing so well, which we might want to merge, and the lines of businesses which are doing well and we want to double down on. Uh, so all of that tying up to just one single thing, right? Which is that all of it should contribute to your cash generation and uh, getting more money in your kitty, so that your long-term plans that you did in early in 2020 stay relevant, right? Second most important thing that we realized was it's important to be agile. It's important with changing regulations. It's important to keep pace with it. And there were a host of things that we ended up doing. We ended up integrating contactless boarding, contactless baggage drop, check-in. So we already had a lot of these things, right? But essentially, we scaled up on a massive number. Okay, so the next thing is product-driven growth. And essentially what that means is driving growth and revenue for your product or for your company through your enhancements that you've made in your product. Because obviously we all know, right? Driving growth, revenue growth uh, is a combination of a lot of things. Your product needs to do well, your marketing needs to fall in place, your sales channels need to do well, your sales teams, your customer support, and all of that. Everything should function smoothly in order to drive revenue for a company. But if during these COVID times, when we had a restraint on all of the other things, and likewise, we had very little budgets for marketing, we had cut down on a lot of things. But what that meant was, from a product standpoint, what are the innovations that we could do? So I'm going to talk about two innovations here that we all as a team worked on. So let's talk about AirAsia Unlimited Pass and what this is. For Malaysia, if you're a Malaysia domestic user, you could buy a deal book and you could fly any n number of times to any destination in Malaysia in a specific period of time. So that's what this deal book meant, and we did a flash sale kind of a thing for a small period of time, and we initially tried it as a concept for one market, and then we thought that as a team we'll see if this is something that resonates with customers, then we'll kind of expand on this as a concept and build it as a full-fledged product per se. But to our surprise, this is something that did really well, and we ended up making a lot of improvements from where we launched the MVP to what it is today. And we ended up launching in multiple other markets, followed by the initial one in Malaysia. We ended up launching Unlimited Pass for Thailand. We ended up launching Unlimited Pass for Philippines. And to an extent, this went so viral this went so viral that even hotels wanted to tie up with us to launch this unlimited thing. Right. So this is one thing that really worked for us, and something that the flights team, my team, was working on. So the second one is Snap, Fly and Stay. So what that means is it's a bundle of flight and a hotel. So as a user on AirAsia.com, you can come and book a flight and a hotel together. at a steep discount compared to what others in the industry are giving. So this is something that again, from a USP standpoint, there's significant value that it drives and gives customers. From a flights standpoint, you're getting the best flight deal, because uh, no one knows which flight has a lesser load than AirAsia, because we have the airline, and we can give a steep discount on the seats that are going empty anyway, right? And we've also stuck good deals with hotels. So to a customer, it's a win-win. So this also helped us drive a lot of traffic, a lot of conversions, a lot of eventually lot of revenue and cash in the kitty, right? Okay. So the other important factor is around communication, and so the pandemic, right? The crisis uh, brought in a lot of uncertainty among people. It brought a lot of uncertainty because on a day-to-day basis, things were changing, roadmaps were changing, the company strategies was changing. Some companies had bad news. Companies were going bankrupt. They were announcing layoffs. There were, salary cuts, salary um, appraisals were put on hold. And so there were a lot of things that were going around on a day-to-day basis, right? And there was a lot of uncertainty. And the one thing that we felt that we could do is do effective communication on a recurring and periodic basis with the team. And this is what the Prime Minister from India, PM Modi, also did on recurring basis with the country. Initially, during the coronavirus initial times, and then later on, when he announced the lockdown on a recurring basis, he would come, he would do a address to the nation, talk about some of the challenges people were facing, try to connect with people, and all of that helped build in a sort of reduce that friction and uneasiness that tough times were creating. Okay, so we've talked about a bit about navigating the storm, and now just to summarize, right? What are the key lessons that, if you ask me, what I really learned, and I feel these are some of the things that even you can apply in your domain, no matter which domain you are in, no matter which industry field you are in, which what position you are in. They all seemed relevant. So first, obviously, cash is king, and without cash, you aren't gonna survive the pandemic or the next. Even if you survive this crisis, you're not gonna survive the next crisis, right? So focus on unit economics. If you've not focused on before, this is a really good time. The pandemic has given us a really good time to focus on all of that and make that healthy. Second, agility outs perfection. So from a product manager's perspective, it's important to be agile. It's important to keep iterating on what you're launching. Try out new things to get your cash running and going. And you can always iterate and get that feedback faster if you get something in the market much early compared to waiting to attain that level of perfection. Communication tops processes. So we felt that even though we had a lot of processes in a Scrum team, in a team, right? Engineering team, product team, we had a lot of processes to get our day-to-day functioning working, right? But none of that was helping as much in the tough times as was a periodic communication. So it's we really underestimate how important is periodic and effective communication is. If you are able to communicate your vision, what you want to do, what how you feel things are going, in a very transparent and true way, right? People will be with you. Your team will get that vibe. They will get that. They will share your motivation, your concern, and they will be by your side. Next, ruthless prioritization. This is something that product managers, I'm sure you would have heard a lot about, but there's no other time than crisis when you have to implement and execute this to the T. So there were tons and tons of ideas, tons and tons of stuff. Me personally, I also said no as a product manager because every time someone would come up with an idea, I would try to play the devil's advocate, try to question, is this something that we should really do when we have very limited resources and we are looking at generating more cash to survive. Is this that particular idea that will help us drive that cash or increase the revenue? So keep saying no to stuff you're not sure about, not convinced about, and uh, uh, be very ruthless when it comes to prioritization. Storytelling can create magic. So if we as product managers can actually nail this art of storytelling, if we can nail this art of conveying the same energy, the same drive, motivation, enthusiasm that we share with our team, and if they can imbibe the same, there's nothing like it. And that is why I say storytelling can create magic, because from a product manager standpoint, we really have very little we don't have a reporting structure, right? People do not report to us, but still we have to lead uh, without authority. And there's no better time than a crisis where this art can really create magic. So, on an ending note, right, what I really want to leave you with is a couple of images. If you look at this image, right, if you look at the eyes of these children, they are so fascinated by what their teacher is explaining, what the story that their teacher is talking about, Alice in Wonderland. It is something that they really feel that magic, that magical world really exists, and that is the magic that a storyteller can weave and create. And as product managers, we are no different, right? If I can, as a product manager for flights at AirAsia, if I can tell that story and carve that magic of AirAsia flying up again with the XYZ things that we are gonna do and implement in the next 1 month, and get my team behind my back, then there's nothing like it. So I leave with you all on that note, and this image of hope, of good times, of an AirAsia flight flying again. And we as product managers uh, are fortunate to be in this role of product management, where storytelling can create a lot of impact. So that's it. Thanks for joining, and I hope you could get some insights and you take back something that you can really apply to your your company, your role, and when you log in on Monday morning and talk to your team.